My name is Marcus Thompson, and I still remember the exact moment my life in that company began to unravel. It was a Tuesday morning in October, the kind of crisp autumn day that makes you believe everything is possible. I had been working at Whitmore & Associates for 3 years, climbing slowly but steadily through the ranks of their financial analysis department. I was good at my job. No, I was excellent at my job. But excellence, I would learn, means different things depending on who is watching. I arrived at the office at 7:30, as I always did. The building was a towering glass structure in downtown Chicago, the kind of place that looked impressive from the outside but felt cold and sterile once you stepped through those revolving doors. I nodded at the security guard, an older black man named Henry who had been working there for 20 years. He gave me a knowing look, the kind of silent communication that exists between people who understand what it means to navigate spaces not designed for them. The elevator ride to the 14th floor was quiet. I shared it with Oliver Patterson, one of the senior analysts who had started the same year as me but had already been promoted twice. Oliver was pleasant enough, the kind of guy who smiled at everyone but never remembered your name. He got off on the 12th floor without saying a word. My desk was in the corner of the open floor plan, far from the windows where the natural light streamed in. I had requested a different spot once, closer to the team I worked with most frequently. The request was denied without explanation, so I made my corner my own, organizing my space with military precision, keeping everything I needed within arm's reach. That morning I was finalizing a presentation for the Henderson account, one of our biggest clients. I had been working on this analysis for 6 weeks, identifying patterns in their investment portfolio that could save them millions. It was the kind of work that could make a career, and I had poured everything into it. Around 9 o'clock, James Crawford walked in. James was my direct supervisor, a man in his mid-40s with graying hair and a perpetual expression of mild annoyance. He had never liked me, though he would never admit it openly. Instead, his disdain manifested in small ways. The assignments that were slightly beneath my skill level, the meetings I was excluded from, the feedback that was always just critical enough to sting but never specific enough to address. "Marcus," he said, stopping at my desk with his coffee cup in hand. "The Henderson presentation. I need it on my desk by noon." I looked up confused. "The presentation is scheduled for Thursday. I still have 2 days to finalize the projections. Plans changed, the meeting got moved up, I need everything by noon." He said it casually, as if this was a minor inconvenience rather than an impossible demand. 6 weeks of work condensed into 3 hours. "James, the data analysis alone requires another full day to verify. If I rush this, there could be errors." He shrugged. "Then don't make errors, noon, Marcus." And he walked away. I spent the next 3 hours in a state of controlled panic. I checked and rechecked every number, every projection, every recommendation. I knew that any mistake would be attributed to incompetence rather than impossible deadlines. That was how it always worked. When Oliver made errors, they were oversights. When I made errors, they were evidence of inadequacy. At 11:45, I sent the presentation to James. At noon exactly, I received an email calling me to the conference room on the executive floor. Something was wrong. The Henderson meeting was not supposed to include me. I was just the analyst who prepared the materials. When I stepped off the elevator on the 18th floor, I felt the shift in atmosphere immediately. The executive floor was carpeted in deep burgundy, lined with oil paintings and mahogany furniture. Everything about it was designed to intimidate, to remind you that you were entering a space where power resided. The conference room was at the end of the hallway, its glass walls revealing a long table surrounded by leather chairs. James was there, along with William Chen, the head of the financial division, and 2 people I didn't recognize. But it was the woman at the head of the table who caught my attention. She was young, younger than I expected for someone in her position. Blonde hair pulled back in an elegant twist, sharp blue eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She wore a navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had never been made to feel small. This was Victoria Ashford, the CEO of Whitmore & Associates. I had seen her in company newsletters and all-staff emails, but never in person. "Mr. Thompson, William Chen said, gesturing to an empty chair. Please, sit down. I sat, my mind racing through possibilities. Had I made an error in the presentation? Had James found something wrong? But then why would the CEO be here? James cleared his throat. Marcus, we have a serious problem. The Henderson presentation you submitted contained significant errors in the third quarter projections. Errors that, if presented to the client, could have cost this company millions of dollars and destroyed a relationship we have spent years building. I felt the blood drain from my face. That is not possible. I verified every calculation multiple times. Are you calling me a liar? James's voice was sharp, accusatory. I am saying there must be some mistake. If you show me the errors, I can explain exactly how I arrived at those numbers. William Chen slid a printed copy of the presentation across the table. I flipped to the third quarter projections and felt my stomach drop. The numbers were wrong. Completely wrong. Different from what I had submitted. Someone had altered my work. These are not my numbers, I said, my voice steady despite the panic rising in my chest. Someone changed the presentation after I submitted it. James laughed, a cold and dismissive sound. So now you are making accusations? This is exactly the kind of behavior we have been documenting, Marcus. The defensiveness, the inability to take responsibility, the aggression when confronted with your own mistakes. Aggression. There it was. The word that followed men who looked like me through every professional space we entered. I had not raised my voice. I had not made any threatening gesture. I had simply stated a fact, and that fact had been reframed as aggression. I would like to see the original file, I said carefully. The one I submitted at 11:45 this morning. The metadata will show exactly what I sent. The original file is what I am showing you, James replied. Your incompetence is documented, Marcus. This is not a debate. I looked around the table, searching for any sign of fairness, any indication that someone would listen. The two people I did not recognize were avoiding my eyes. William Chen was studying his hands, and Victoria Ashford was watching me with an expression I could not read. Ms. Ashford, I said, addressing her directly, I have been with this company for 3 years. My performance reviews have been consistently excellent. I have never submitted work with errors of this magnitude because I do not make errors of this magnitude. Someone altered my presentation and I am being set up to take the blame. The room went silent. I had broken an unspoken rule by addressing the CEO directly, by bypassing the chain of command that was designed to keep people like me in our place. James's face turned red with barely contained fury. Marcus, he said through clenched teeth, I think you should consider very carefully what you are implying. I am not implying anything. I am stating a fact. Those numbers are not mine. Victoria Ashford raised one hand, a small gesture that immediately silenced the room. Mr. Chen, Mr. Crawford, I would like to speak with Mr. Thompson alone. The words hung in the air. James opened his mouth to protest, but something in Victoria's expression stopped him. One by one, they filed out of the conference room, leaving me alone with the most powerful woman in the company. She waited until the door closed before speaking. Mr. Thompson, I watched you through the glass before you entered this room. I saw your face when you looked at those numbers. That was not the face of a man who recognized his own mistake. That was the face of a man who had been betrayed. I did not know what to say. This was not the conversation I had expected. I also noticed, she continued, that Mr. Crawford did not answer your request to see the original file. That strikes me as odd, does it not? If your guilt was so clear, why not simply prove it? Ma'am, I do not know what is happening here, but I am telling you the truth. Those numbers were changed after I submitted them. Victoria Ashford leaned back in her chair, studying me with those sharp blue eyes. I believe you, Mr. Thompson. The question is what we are going to do about it. For now, I need you to return to your desk and continue working as if this meeting never happened. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am. Good. And Mr. Thompson? Trust no one. Not until we understand exactly what we are dealing with. She stood, signaling that our conversation was over. As I walked back to the elevator, my mind was spinning. I had walked into that room expecting to be fired. Instead, I had found something I had not encountered in 3 years at Whitmore and Associates. Someone who was willing to listen. But I also knew that whatever protection Victoria Ashford could offer, it would not be enough on its own. If someone was willing to alter documents to frame me, they would try again. And next time, they might succeed. The weeks following that conference room confrontation became a study in survival. I arrived early, left late, and documented everything. Every email I sent was backed up to a personal drive. Every conversation with James or his allies was followed by a written summary sent to myself with timestamps. I was building a fortress of evidence, one brick at a time. The harassment did not stop. If anything, it intensified. Projects I had been leading were suddenly reassigned to Lucas Martinez, a junior analyst who had been with the company for less than a year. When I asked James about it, he said my workload needed to be redistributed following the Henderson situation. The Henderson situation that had quietly disappeared, with no further investigation into the altered numbers. One morning, I discovered that my access to the financial modeling software had been restricted. When I contacted IT, they told me the request had come from management due to security concerns. No one could tell me what those concerns were or when my access would be restored. "They're trying to make you quit," said Denise Williams, one of the few people in the office I trusted. Denise was a senior accountant who had been at Whitmore for 15 years, a black woman who had seen every trick in the book. "They can't fire you without cause, so they're going to squeeze you out." "I'm not quitting," I said. "I know you're not, but you need to be careful, Marcus. James has friends in high places. Whatever happened in that meeting with the CEO, it made him nervous. Nervous people do stupid things." She was right. I could feel the walls closing in around me, the subtle exclusions becoming less subtle by the day. I was no longer invited to team meetings. My name was removed from project correspondence. Even the small talk in the break room stopped when I entered. But something else was happening too, something I did not fully understand. 3 times in the past 2 weeks, I had been called to the executive floor for meetings that turned out to be routine budget reviews. The kind of meetings that never included someone at my level. Each time, Victoria Ashford was present, and each time, she found a reason to ask me a direct question, to bring my expertise into the conversation. It was subtle, so subtle that no one seemed to notice the pattern. But I noticed, and I began to wonder if there was a strategy at work. A quiet countermove against the forces trying to push me out. The turning point came on a Friday afternoon. I was at my desk, reviewing expense reports that had been dumped on me as busy work, when I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line was empty and the body contained only a link to a shared drive folder. I hesitated. This could be a trap, another setup designed to give James the ammunition he needed. But curiosity won out. I clicked the link. The folder contained financial documents, hundreds of them. Expense reports, vendor contracts, internal memos, all related to a project called Cornerstone that I had never heard of. I started reading, and what I found made my blood run cold. Cornerstone was a shell project, a fake initiative that existed only on paper. For the past 18 months, James Crawford and William Chen had been using it to funnel company money to a series of shell companies. The amounts were staggering. Millions of dollars redirected under the guise of consulting fees and equipment purchases. And buried in the documentation was evidence of kickbacks, payments made to personal accounts that could only be described as theft. I sat back in my chair, my heart pounding. This was not about me. The altered presentation, the restricted access, the campaign to push me out, it was all about protecting Cornerstone. I had stumbled too close to something, made someone nervous, and now they were trying to eliminate me before I could discover the truth. But who had sent me this folder? Who else knew about Cornerstone and wanted it exposed? My phone buzzed with a text message from a number I didn't recognize. "Conference room B, 18th floor, 5 minutes, come alone." Every instinct told me this was dangerous. But I thought about Denise's words, about the walls closing in, about the choice between fighting and running. I took the elevator to the executive floor. Conference room B was empty when I arrived, the lights dimmed, the blinds drawn. I stood in the doorway, uncertain whether to enter, when I heard her voice. "Close the door, Mr. Thompson." Victoria Ashford emerged from the shadows near the window, her expression unreadable. She was alone, no assistants. No security, just the two of us in that darkened room. "You sent the documents," I said. It was not a question. I needed you to see what you were up against, and I needed to know if you were brave enough to look. "Why me? You're the CEO. You could expose this yourself." She moved closer, and I could see the tension in her shoulders, the weight she was carrying. "Because I am new to this position, Mr. Thompson. I inherited a company that I am only now beginning to understand. Crawford and Chen have allies on the board, people who helped them build this scheme, and who will protect them if I move too quickly. If I try to expose them without ironclad proof, without someone they cannot discredit, they will turn it around on me. They will say I am a young woman in over my head, making accusations I cannot support. And I'm the someone they cannot discredit? You are someone they have already tried to destroy, which means you have nothing left to lose and everything to gain. It also means that when this comes to light, no one will believe you were in on it." I considered her words, the cold logic behind them. She was using me. There was no denying that. But she was also offering me something I had wanted for 3 years, a fair fight. "What do you need me to do?" I asked. "Keep documenting, keep watching. There is a board meeting in 6 weeks, and I need to present evidence so overwhelming that even Crawford's allies cannot protect him. I need you to help me build that case. And if we fail? If they find out what we're doing?" Victoria's eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw something behind the CEO facade, something human and vulnerable. Then we both lose everything, but I would rather lose fighting than win by looking the other way. In that moment, something shifted between us. We were no longer CEO and analyst, no longer powerful and powerless. We were two people standing against a system designed to crush anyone who threatened it. "I'm in," I said. Over the following weeks, we developed a rhythm. I worked my regular job during the day, enduring the petty humiliations and documenting each one. At night, I analyzed the cornerstone files, tracing money trails and identifying patterns. Victoria and I met secretly, sometimes in conference rooms after hours, sometimes in a coffee shop across town where no one from the company would see us. I learned things about her during those meetings, that she had built her career from nothing, that her polished exterior hid years of struggle and sacrifice, that she had taken this CEO position because she believed she could make the company better, and that discovering the corruption had shaken her faith in everything she thought she knew. And she learned things about me, about growing up in the South Side of Chicago, about being the first in my family to graduate from college, about the dreams I had carried into that glass tower and the ways those dreams had been slowly crushed. "They see what they want to see," she said one evening as we sat in that coffee shop with papers spread between us. "They look at you and see a threat, something that does not belong in their world. They cannot imagine that you might be smarter than them, more capable than them, so they have to tear you down to maintain their illusion." "And what do you see?" I asked. She was quiet for a long moment, her fingers wrapped around her coffee cup. "I see someone who refuses to break, and I think that terrifies them more than anything." The evidence mounted. Emails showing Crawford directing payments, contracts with forged signatures, bank records that traced the kickbacks to accounts in the Cayman Islands. We had enough to bring them down, but Victoria wanted more. She wanted it to be undeniable. "The board meeting is in 2 weeks, she told me. "Chen is going to present the quarterly financials. I need you to be there." "In the board meeting? That's not possible. I don't have clearance for executive sessions." "You do now. I'm bringing you in as a special consultant on financial irregularities. It's all documented and approved." I stared at her. "They'll know something is wrong. Crawford will see me there, and he'll panic." "I'm counting on it," Victoria said, and for the first time I saw her smile. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting a very long time for justice. 2 days before the board meeting, I received another anonymous email. This one contained no documents, just a single sentence. "They know about the coffee shop. Watch your back. The morning of the board meeting, I woke before dawn. Sleep had been impossible, my mind racing through every scenario, every possible outcome. In a few hours, everything would change. Either we would expose the corruption that had nearly destroyed my career, or Crawford and Chen would find a way to turn it against us. There was no middle ground. I dressed carefully, choosing my best suit, the one I had bought for my mother's funeral 2 years ago. She would have been proud of me today, I thought. She always told me that integrity was worth more than success, that the truth had a way of rising no matter how hard people tried to bury it. The headquarters building seemed different as I approached it. The glass tower that had been my prison now transformed into an arena. Henry, the security guard, nodded at me as I passed, and I wondered if he sensed that something momentous was about to happen. Probably not. For him, it was just another Tuesday. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 o'clock in the executive conference room, the same room where I had been falsely accused months ago. The symbolism was not lost on me. Victoria had chosen this battlefield deliberately. When I arrived on the 18th floor, the atmosphere was charged with tension. Board members were filing in, men and women in expensive suits who controlled billions of dollars and thousands of lives. Crawford was there, looking confident, his gray hair perfectly styled, his handshake firm as he greeted his allies. Chen stood beside him, reviewing notes, occasionally glancing toward the door. And then they saw me. Crawford's expression flickered, just for a moment, a crack in his composure that most people would have missed. But I had been watching him for months. I knew every tell, every nervous habit. He leaned over to Chen and whispered something, and Chen's face went pale. "Mr. Thompson," Crawford said loudly, loud enough for everyone to hear. I wasn't aware that junior analysts were invited to board meetings now. Has there been some mistake? No mistake. Victoria's voice cut through the room as she entered. Mr. Thompson is here at my request. He has been assisting with a special project that I believe the board will find very interesting. She took her seat at the head of the table and I sat beside her. Crawford and Chen exchanged glances, their unease palpable. Around the table, board members shifted in their seats, sensing that this would not be a routine quarterly review. The meeting began with standard business, financial reports, and operational updates. Chen presented the quarterly numbers with practiced smoothness, painting a picture of steady growth and responsible management. I watched him lie with impressive conviction, knowing that every word was a performance designed to hide the theft we were about to expose. When Chen finished, Victoria stood. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Those numbers are certainly impressive. However, I have some additional information that I believe the board needs to see before we approve this quarter's report. She clicked a remote, and the screen at the front of the room changed. The first slide showed the Cornerstone project overview, the fake initiative that had been used to funnel millions. Can anyone tell me about Project Cornerstone? Victoria asked, her voice calm, almost casual. It's absorbed nearly $12 million over the past 18 months, yet I can find no evidence of any actual deliverables or outcomes. The room went silent. Crawford shifted in his seat. Cornerstone is a strategic initiative, he said carefully. The details are confidential at this stage. I see. And can you explain why the payments for this confidential initiative were directed to these companies? Another click, another slide. A list of shell corporations, each one traced back to offshore accounts. Chen spoke up, his voice tight. Ms. Ashford, I'm not sure what you're implying, but these are legitimate consulting arrangements. I have the contracts right here. Do you? Because when I asked Mr. Thompson to analyze those contracts, he found something interesting. Victoria nodded at me. This was my moment. I stood, my heart pounding but my voice steady. The contracts for Project Cornerstone contain several irregularities. First, the vendor signatures don't match any registered business entities. Second, the payment schedules align precisely with deposits made to personal accounts in the Cayman Islands. Accounts that I have traced to Mr. Crawford and Mr. Chen. I clicked through the slides, showing the evidence we had spent weeks compiling. Bank records, email chains, forged documents compared to authentic ones. Each piece built on the last, creating a picture so clear that even Crawford's allies could not look away. "This is outrageous," Crawford sputtered, rising from his seat. "You're going to believe some disgruntled employee over two senior executives? Thompson was nearly fired for incompetence. This is obviously retaliation." "Actually," Victoria said, her voice sharp as a blade, "Mr. Thompson was nearly fired because someone altered his work to frame him. I have the original files he submitted with timestamps that prove the presentation was changed after it left his computer. Would you like to guess whose login credentials were used to make those changes, Mr. Crawford?" The color drained from Crawford's face. He looked around the table searching for allies, but found only cold stares and averted eyes. "I have also obtained statements from 3 employees who were pressured to participate in this scheme," Victoria continued. "They came forward after Mr. Thompson began his investigation, once they realized they were not alone. 2 of them are willing to testify before the SEC if necessary." The room erupted. Board members demanded explanations. Legal counsel began talking about liability and containment. Crawford and Chen sat frozen, their empire crumbling around them in real time. But the moment I will remember forever came when Eleanor Whitmore, the founder's daughter and the most senior board member, spoke. She was 82 years old with white hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "James," she said quietly, and the room fell silent. "I gave you your first job at this company 40 years ago. I trusted you with my father's legacy. And this is how you repay that trust?" Crawford had no answer. For the first time since I had known him, he looked small, diminished, stripped of the power he had wielded so carelessly. "I move that Mr. Crawford and Mr. Chen be immediately suspended pending a full investigation," Eleanor continued. "All in favor?" Every hand went up. Even the board members who had been Crawford's allies knew that there was no protecting him now. Security arrived to escort Crawford and Chen from the building. As they passed my chair, Crawford stopped and looked at me with pure hatred in his eyes. "You think you've won?" he hissed. "You're nothing. You'll always be nothing." I met his gaze without flinching. "Maybe. But I'll be nothing with a clean conscience." "Can you say the same?" He had no response. Security took his arm and led him away, and just like that, the man who had tried to destroy me was gone. The meeting continued for another 2 hours, dealing with damage control and next steps. I answered questions, provided documentation, and watched as the board began the process of cleaning up the mess Crawford and Chen had created. By the time it ended, I was exhausted but strangely at peace. Victoria found me in the hallway afterward, standing by the windows that overlooked the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. "You were remarkable in there," she said, standing beside me. "I just told the truth. You did all the hard work." She shook her head. "I couldn't have done it without you, Marcus. I want you to know that. When everyone else was willing to look the other way, you refused. That takes courage I'm not sure I would have had in your position." "Can I ask you something?" I said, turning to face her. "Why did you believe me? That first day in the conference room when Crawford was trying to frame me. You barely knew me. Why did you take my side?" Victoria was quiet for a moment, looking out at the city. "Because I've been where you were. Not the same circumstances, but the same feeling. Being dismissed. Being underestimated. Having people assume the worst about you because of who you are. When I saw how they treated you, I recognized it. And I decided I would not be part of a company that operated that way." We stood in comfortable silence, watching the lights come on across the skyline. Something had shifted between us over the past months. Something that went beyond professional alliance or shared purpose. I had felt it growing, this connection built on mutual respect and hard-won trust. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now, we rebuild. The board is going to offer you a promotion, Director of Financial Integrity. It's a new position, created specifically to prevent anything like this from happening again. The salary is significant and you'd report directly to me." "And us?" The question surprised me even as I asked it, but I needed to know. Victoria turned to face me, her blue eyes soft in the fading light. "I think we both know that what we have goes beyond professional obligation. But I also know that moving too fast could undermine everything we've built. People will question whether you earned your position or whether it was given to you because of our relationship. So what do you suggest? I suggest we take our time, get to know each other outside of crisis mode, see if what we feel in conference rooms and coffee shops translates to dinners and walks in the park. She smiled, and it was different from her CEO smile, warmer, more vulnerable. I've been thinking about what a future might look like, with someone who sees me as more than a title, with someone who challenged me to be better. I reached out and took her hand. It was a small gesture, but it felt monumental. I'd like that. I'd like that very much. Good, she said, because I've already made dinner reservations for Friday. Nothing fancy, just a place I love that has terrible lighting and excellent pasta. If you're interested. I'm interested. We stood there as the last light faded from the sky, two people who had found each other in the most unlikely circumstances. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be whispers and speculation, people who would try to diminish what we had built. But I had learned something important over the past months. The opinions of people who wish you harm are meaningless. What matters is knowing your own worth, standing by your principles, and finding the rare individuals who see you for who you truly are. A month later, I started my new position. The work was challenging and meaningful, exactly what I had always wanted. Victoria and I took things slowly, building a relationship on the foundation of respect we had established. Our first real date was at that restaurant with the terrible lighting. And she was right. The pasta was excellent. Crawford and Chen were indicted on federal charges. The trial would take years, but the outcome was certain. The evidence was overwhelming, and 3 more employees had come forward with testimony. Eleanor Whitmore personally called me to thank me for protecting her father's legacy. But the moment I treasure most came on a quiet Sunday afternoon, 6 months after the board meeting. Victoria and I were walking through Grant Park, watching the boats on Lake Michigan, talking about everything and nothing. I never thanked you properly, she said, for trusting me when you had every reason not to, for taking a risk that could have destroyed you. You gave me something I hadn't had in 3 years at that company, I replied. You gave me a chance to be seen. The real thanks goes to you. She stopped walking and turned to face me. I love you, Marcus. I know it's probably too soon to say that, and I know our situation is complicated, but I need you to know that what I feel is real. It's not about gratitude or shared trauma or any of the things people might assume. It's about who you are and who I am when I'm with you. I pulled her close, right there in the middle of the park, not caring who might see. I love you too, and for the record, it's not too soon. I think I've loved you since that first meeting, when you looked at me and saw the truth when everyone else refused to. We kissed as the sun set over the lake, 2 people who had found each other against all odds. My mother used to say that justice has its own timeline, that sometimes you have to wait in the darkness before you see the dawn. She was right. The dawn was here, and it was more beautiful than I had ever imagined.